Hello and welcome to this video, guys. In this video I want to talk about this camera right here. This is my custom cinema camera rig, the Sigma FP. I've owned the Sigma FP for a couple months and I absolutely love this quirky little camera. Now, as you can see, this rig is pretty built out, but the main goal of this video is to talk about the camera, how I built the rig, the components that I used, and show you a bunch of footage that I've shot using this camera. Now, before we break down the rig, I want to quickly talk about the image quality as well as show you footage from the camera. It's taken me around 2 months of experimenting to get a good handle on the way that I like to use a Sigma FP. And what I mean by that is the way that I expose the footage, the ISO that I shoot at, as well as grading in DaVinci Resolve. But throughout all of that experimentation, I've been able to get results from the camera that I really like. So I'll quickly elaborate on what I just mentioned. The ISO that I like shooting at is ISO 800. This will get you the most balanced dynamic range above and below middle gray. I'll put a chart on the screen right now. This is directly from Sigma, and this is just a dynamic range chart. I use ELZone to properly monitor my footage, and I make sure to protect my highlights from blowing out. And finally, my workflow in DaVinci has been updated time and time again, but I feel pretty confident that I've finalized my workflow when it comes to grading the Sigma FP footage. I won't cover that in this video because that would take a really long time, but if you are interested in seeing how I grade the footage, maybe leave a comment or shoot me a DM on Instagram, and if there's enough interest, I'll go ahead and make that video. Now, without further ado, let's get into the actual construction of the rig. Okay, so now we've stripped everything and we are left with just the Sigma FP, and it's crazy. I guess I always forget how small this camera is because I never have it in its bare form. So the first things that we're going to add are the small rig wooden side handle and the Dark Power Labs Sigma FP cage. Okay, so now we have the camera in the cage, the wooden side grip is on, and the form of the camera is still really small. That's the nice thing about this cage, is that it doesn't add a lot of size, but the downside that I found with it is there's kind of not that many mounting points, and that's where I start having my issues. Is the top, as you can see, only has 3 1/4-20s and then 1 1/4-20. You also have some 1/4-20s on the side and some on the front, but I just kind of don't see how the ones on the front are that useful. And that's my only gripe with this cage, is I just wish it was maybe a little bit bigger and we had more places to mount accessories. So now we're going to move on to the side of the camera and make sure we're protecting these ports. The first thing that we're going to be adding is the 8-pin USB-C and HDMI clamp, and then the small rig micro HDMI to full-size HDMI. So now we have the side of the camera addressed. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in a little bit later once the next step is complete. Now, our next component of the rig is this guy. This is the base plate of the rig, and this consists of a couple different components. The first one being the DPL 100mm Arca Swiss base plate, and then attached to that, we have the Nicey Rig cheese plate, and then a small rig NPF battery plate, and the last thing is the SSD holder. As you can see, we have a USB-C cable in there, and what this allows us to do is to just be able to slide this in and click it in place. It allows me the ability to easily take on and take off the SSDs. So now let's go ahead and combine these two together. What I really like about this 8-pin clamp is it protects the ports on the actual cameras. If something happens to the cables and these get damaged, it's not that big of a deal because these are only a couple bucks to replace. But if you damage the ports on the camera, your repair bill can be, I would say, easily in the hundreds of dollars. So I think this is just a great, very cheap, affordable insurance policy to make sure that you're keeping your camera safe. Okay, so now we're in the home stretch of this rig, and the last thing that we're going to do is address the top of the rig by adding a monitor as well as a handle. To address the handle, we're going to be using this guy, which is this teeny tiny little small rig handle, and for the monitor, we'll be using this small rig monitor mount, and this is the monitor that I'm using. It's some old Feelworld 7-inch monitor. I've probably had it for like 6 or 7 years at this point. I doubt they even sell it, so I'm not going to leave a link to this monitor in the description, but I will leave links to other monitors that I've heard great things about. Okay, so now we have the top handle and the monitor connected, and the last few steps for balancing we're gonna add a battery, and then we're going to add our cables. Now, some of you might be wondering why I don't have a dummy battery set up from the camera into the actual battery plate. I have all the accessories that I need to make that, but I just haven't taken the time to actually cut the wires and solder them and do all that stuff. But that is in the works, and that will be done very soon. So this is essentially the entire rig, but it's not finished yet because we can't film anything without lenses. And the lenses that I've been using most are these two vintage Olympus OM lenses. The first one is this 24mm f2.8, and the next one is the 55mm f1.2. Most of the footage that you're seeing was shot on the 24mm. What I really like about it is how small it is. It's not necessarily the best lens optically, but it does the trick. And the 55 was used on a few of the shots, and this lens is absolutely amazing. The quality coming from this lens is fantastic. Now for the final touches on the lens, the ND filter that I'm using is the Freewell V2 magnetic variable ND system. It's kind of a mouthful, but it works absolutely amazing. As you can see, putting the magnetic lens cap on is super easy to take on and take off. There are hard stops as well as indicators at 3 stops all the way down to 7 stops, so you know exactly when to stop. And you don't have to deal with that weird X cross hatching or whatever it's called that you get from other filters that don't have hard stops. It also has this guy, which is what they would consider their quarter snow mist, and that just goes straight onto the front. If you want to take it off, pick it off. It's all magnetic. Put the lens cap on. It's super convenient. Before I got the chance to use these filters, I'd never had a good ND filter before. It was always like the cheaper, kind of crappy ones. And so using a high quality and a good ND filter for the first time ever has been a really, obviously a fun and a great experience because yeah, these just perform really well. So I could not recommend these enough. And this is essentially the whole rig. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I've been really enjoying using it. It's been a really fun camera to use, and it's been a really fun camera to learn how to use. You know, the Sigma FP is a little bit quirky, like I mentioned in the beginning, and there's a lot of stuff to learn in terms of the way you shoot it and the way that you know, correct the footage, and I guess the way that you, as the filmmaker or the photographer, interpret that footage in post to make it look the way that you like it to look. And also, like I mentioned earlier, if you are interested in learning about the way that I do interpret that footage, leave a comment, shoot me a DM on Instagram, let me know, and I can make that video. But yeah, I've been having a really fun time using this camera, and I'm excited for what I have planned with it going into the future. I want to put a lot more time into making these videos look good and kind of increasing the production value by putting a little bit more time into the behind the scenes of actually creating my videos. I feel like so many times I get caught up in just wanting to take pictures, and I still do that. I'm really bad about doing that because, you know, the first thing I am is a photographer, and you know, filmmaking is something that I want to take more precedence in my channel, but photography has always come first for me, and I'm trying to make that switch mentally to make sure that I am including other things in terms of my photography. So yeah, I think I'm going to end the video right there. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. It really does help me out a lot. If you're interested in seeing more of my work, feel free to check out my channel. I'll also leave my Instagram on the screen as well as my website in the description below if you are interested in seeing the work that I have posted not on YouTube. Thank you again for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.